Now available as paperback and e-readers from the author of Spinsterella, A Strange and Unusual Romance, and Spellbound, A Darker Shade of Black comes from legendary Magazine. And you get the conclusion of the Spinsterella trilogy in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers today. You've often heard me say the old African proverb, a race can rise no higher than the moral position of its women. And as the woman goes, so goes the race. And I came to an epiphany about that old African proverb this morning, and I finally believe I understand why that proverb makes so much sense. Now, when it comes down to a civilization, women play an incredibly valuable role when they work interdependently with men. Now, men are the ones who are the builders of a civilization, and they are the protectors of a civilization because they are the ones who lay the foundation for the infrastructure for a civilization, and they are the ones who are the warriors who protect that civilization from foreign invaders. However, as they are building the outside of the civilization and protecting the outside of the civilization, a woman has a role in that civilization as well. And that role in the civilization is to be the first teacher of culture to the children. And as the first teacher of culture to the children, she is the one who teaches the children the culture, the traditions, the core values, and the moral position that they are going to need to pass the culture on to the next generation and set the course for that culture and that race of people going on from generation to generation. And just like the man protects the culture and the civilization from the outside, the woman also protects the civilization on the inside. And how she protects the civilization is this: she not only teaches the culture, but she also protects the culture. And I started to see how women protect a culture when I saw several women in the goth YouTube community making efforts to deal with the whole issue of commercialism in the goth subculture because those women saw the direction of the goth subculture going in a more commercial way, and they believed that the goth subculture going a commercial way would lead to the foundations of the goth subculture being compromised and the values of the goth subculture going in a negative direction. So they were making efforts in their videos to talk about what was really important about the goth subculture and the foundation of the goth subculture being the music. So when I took a look at their videos that they made about a couple of months ago, these women went out of their way to protect the culture because they understood how important the subculture was to the to the community, and they understood that they had to protect it so that it could be passed on to the next generation of goths. So when I saw those goths women going out of their way to protect their subculture from what they believed was a threat called commercialism, with all these advertisers making proposals to different goths and everybody always talking about hauls and different clothing lines more so than the foundations of the subculture, I saw how women who have a strong moral position protect their culture. And this is something that women do because this ensures the survival of the culture and it ensures the survival of the race. And it sets a course where the race can continue on for the next generation. So I understand why it's important for women to have a strong moral position and a high moral position and how that relates to building and maintaining a civilization because as the men are building and protecting the outside, the woman has to be there to protect the inside. And they protect the inside by establishing the core values of a culture, maintaining the core values of the culture, maintaining the traditions of a culture, and then teaching the traditions of that culture to the son so that they understand what's important about the culture. And then as they're learning from their father, why they have to protect their culture and their civilization, but also they teach their daughters the importance of their culture, the importance of protecting the culture, the importance of preserving the culture, the importance of preserving the traditions of the culture, and the importance of maintaining the standards of a culture. Those are all things that women do. Unfortunately, most women these days don't understand the value of their role and the value of their role as it works with men, because women and men have to work interdependently with each other if you hope to have a strong civilization. Unfortunately, today, what we have in many cultures of Western culture is women not understanding the value of their role and why their role is important and why it's important for them to have that high moral position and why it's important for them to respect and value their roles as mothers and as teachers, because as their roles as mothers and teachers, they pass on the knowledge and the culture to the next generation of children. Without the women there to be the mothers to the children and to be the teachers to the children don't get a sense of values, they don't get a sense of culture, and they don't understand what's important about their culture and their traditions. All of those things are things that women teach boys and girls, and this is how culture and traditions get passed on from generation to generation. And this is something that many women don't learn to value, because in our gynocentric and feminist culture, most women have been taught that the role of the man is more important to women than their own role, and they want to get the role of the man because many feminists covet the role of the man and they want his power and his authority, but they don't understand the power of their own position. This was something I wrote about in my novel The Thetas, where the Colleen character learns about the power of the woman's position and the value of a woman's position in the black community and why that role is important. And this is something most women in the West have not learned to value over the last 50 years, that the role of the woman is extremely important in protecting the culture and preserving the culture so it can be passed on to the next generation. Many women believe today, thanks to feminism, that their role is to be just like the man and have them make the money like the man, and they believe that someone else can raise their children. However, when someone else raises your children, what happens is your children don't learn your culture, they don't learn your values, and they don't learn your traditions. Instead, they learn a different set of values, and those values and culture teach them a different set of ideas than those of that you would pass on yourself. And again, I look at the kids who are in daycare centers, and they are learning a different set of values and culture in those environments, and they're learning more about commercialism than and they're learning antisocial behaviors than learning functional and healthy social behaviors. And this is something I have learned from listening to my family member talk to me about different kids and different interactions, and how they're learning not to connect with people, but they're learning to really see people as adversarial, and they're learning to be very distant from people. And this is something kids are learning as a culture, and they're learning that commercial things have more value than people in these environments. And again, I compare what kids were learning there compared to what the women of the goth subculture were learning, because those women went out of their way to start defending and protecting their culture because they understood what was important about it, because they wanted to make sure it was protected and preserved so they could teach it to the next generation. And even though there's a little bit of a generation gap, they are still trying to make sure that they bridge it, because you have the younger Goths and the older Goths. They're trying to work together to preserve the culture, and that's why they're as I believe, in a very strong position, because the women have that strong moral position and they understand the value of their culture, and that was what's great about them compared to what many in the Western culture are doing. They don't really understand the role of the woman and how it's important to the culture. They don't understand it, and that's why we see this really cultural decline, because we don't see women understanding how important their role is to the overall family, because feminists have told them that their role has no value, that being a mother is a bad thing, and that their role as a woman in the family is a bad thing, when their role is equally important to the family and equally important to the civilization. Because, yes, the man has physical power in being the protector and the provider and the builder. Yes, he has those those physical qualities, but the woman has equally strong qualities, because it is her role that ensures that the race has a direction to go in. It's her teaching the culture to the son and the daughter that makes sure that kids have the values that are passed on from generation to generation, that lead to the traditions and lead to the value systems that lead to people maintaining a strong civilization. So we have to understand that the woman's role is equally important, even though it is a different role. It is equally important. This is the big problem that feminists have, because in their idea of equality, they want the woman to be like the man, not understanding that the woman's role, while it is different, is equally important, and her role has just as much value as the man's role, and they have to work together if you hope to have a strong family, and have strong families that form strong communities and have strong civilizations. This is something people don't understand, because in an era of feminism and gynocentrism, we have a very slanted, one-sided view of the role of women, and the women covet the role of the man, not understanding that their role is just as important in the civilization, and it has equal value, even though it is a different role. It's just like working in a company. You have the CEO. Yes, he's the leader at the top, but his secretary or his executive assistant is just as equally important in managing the long-term operations, and the vice president and other people, their roles are just as important in maintaining the operations of that company. So each person has a different role, but all the roles are equally valuable in maintaining the entire bigger picture of that organization. And the sad part is that in today's era, we don't have people who understand the big picture as related to men and women, and they're thinking that one is better than the other, but both roles, again, are of equal value, are now of equal importance, and people have to understand what's great about both of them in order to set a strong course for culture and civilization. And when I take a look at the woman's role, we have to start seeing more value in it as it is, and see that it's just as equally important as the role of the man, and not put one over the other. Yes, males have leadership and authority in building and maintaining a civilization on the outside, but it is the women who protect and preserve it on the inside. If you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box. And if you want to try some of my SJS Direct titles, like the Thetas or the Spinsterella trilogy, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.